Call meeting to order. Pledge of Allegiance, Councilmember McCallum.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Roll call, please.
Mayor Larkey.
Here.
Councilmember White.
Here.
Councilmember Thompson.
Here.
Councilmember Pryan.
Here.
Councilmember Davidson.
Here.
Councilmember Lawson.
Here.
Councilmember Richardson.
Here.
Councilmember McCallum.
Here.
Councilmember Johnson.
Here.
We have a quorum. Personal appearances, years of service recognition.
Scott Lyons, Chief of Police for Belton. I have Detective Jeff Richardson with me. He's celebrating 25 years with the police department. He first joined us as a reserve police officer, spent about a year, and then went full-time thereafter. He's been a police officer, full-time for the police department, as a patrol officer, school resource officer, and detective. As a detective, he has investigated some of the more recent cases that have gained us notoriety, especially with fentanyl deaths in our community, and we're very thankful for that. He's also the epitome of being an engaged employee. He's a part of the employee engagement team for City Hall for all city employees, but he's also on our award ceremony. And then, just like me, he comes from a law enforcement family. He has two brothers that have been in law enforcement for just about as long as him. And so I know that that's very proud for him and his family. Congratulations on your 25 years.
Congratulations.
I am John Sapp, the Fire Chief for Belton Fire Department. I have with me tonight Captain Jordan Goddard. We're celebrating and congratulating him on 20 years of service. I've had the pleasure to work next to Jordan, and then also as a captain, he worked on my crew, and so it was always a fun and good time. There's probably a few things that nobody should say that we have witnessed before, but he's turned out to be a great employee. He started with us very young, probably started off maybe a little bit with some disadvantage, but he proved himself, and he's been a great employee for the fire department. So congratulations, Jordan. Thank you.
Do I get to talk about him? Sure. Guess I need that. Anybody else?
No.
All right. E, unfinished business. 1, motion approving the final reading of Bill 2024-51.
An ordinance authorizing the issuance of not to exceed $15,250,000 principal amount of general obligation bonds, Series 2024 of the City of Belton, Missouri, and certain other documents and actions by the city.
Present.
Second.
I have a motion and a second. You're up, finally.
Are there any questions I can answer tonight?
Any questions from anybody?
Okay, so I do have something to say then. We received a draft.
That was kind of trick.
We received a draft of the FY23 audit today with 12 questions. We were able to answer 9 of them, and we'll finish up the other 3 tomorrow, and hopefully back to the auditors by the end of the day tomorrow. So we're getting very, very close.
Cool.
Thank you.
I'm going to be mean. What about 24s?
We're going to start immediately.
Anybody got any questions? Hearing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Wait.
Whoop.
It's
Roll call. My bad.
Councilmember Pryan.
Aye.
Davidson.
Yes.
Thompson.
Yes.
White.
Aye.
Johnson.
Aye.
McCallum.
Aye.
Lawson,
Aye.
Mayor Larky,
Yes.
Richardson.
Aye.
Motion carries. F, new business, motion approving the first reading of Bill 2024-56.
An ordinance of the City of Belton, Missouri, calling for and establishing the date of the general city election for municipal officers to be held on April 8, 2025.
Second.
Present.
Motion and a second. You want to say anything?
The first day to file is December 10, 8 a.m. It will also be publicized, and we'll advertise it at December 10.
Any question? Go ahead.
I noticed surrounding cities will typically list the incumbent or that, the incumbent of that associated open term. Just wondering if anybody has any history as to why we do not do that, or maybe why they do that. Just wondering if we have any history on that.
They list the incumbent where?
In the listing for the election,
The
the
listing
open
of who has
terms.
filed. It'll say incumbent next to it.
No, so specifically, if you look at like the notice that goes in the paper, that then will look identical to what we have here, listed in our packet. That is where they have listed who's the open term is. So, for example, I might not know if it's. I'll just use me as an example. I might not know if it's Councilmember McCallum or not open for the term. Does that make sense?
It does. We don't have anything in the charter or code recognizing that.
There's also nothing in state law that says that you list the name of the incumbent. Just not knowing what city it is, it could be a city where there's not a way to describe the position outside of the incumbent's name. For example, here you have wards, so you can say council member ward blank, but in some cities there are no wards, it's just council members. So maybe that is why they're doing it in that way, but even my cities that don't have wards don't do that either.
So I see some advantages and potential disadvantages for doing that and not doing it. So I'm not trying to propose a change. I was just hoping we might be able to get some understanding as to why we might operate slightly different. But I just wanted to open that up. We can, have discussion about that at a later time, I guess.
I've never heard either or, so, but that don't mean nothing either, so.
I haven't seen that yet.
Anybody else? Hearing none, all in favor? Any opposed? Motion carries. Item 2, motion approving resolution 2024-88.
A resolution adopting the updated purchasing policy for the City of Belton.
Present.
Second.
Have a motion and a second. You're up.
Mr. Mayor and Council, yes, the resolution before you is essentially a follow-up on the workshop that we conducted recently about the purchasing policy. The main substantive change is the raising of the lowest purchasing authority amount up to $5,000. There were a couple other cleanup things in the language. You saw we sent out that we gave you that red line version previously. So I'd be glad to stand for any questions.
Anybody have any questions? Hearing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Item 3, motion approving resolution 2024-89.
A resolution approving benefits renewal of Aetna Medical Insurance with a 10.9% increase beginning January 1, 2025.
Present.
Second.
Motion and a second. You're up.
This is just a resolution from what we talked about at the last work session on the 2025 employee benefits renewal. As a reminder, from that presentation, we recommended an increase of 10.9% to the PPO plan and 20% to the EPO plan based on loss ratios. The only changes would be from the individual network or in-network deductibles, because the IRS raised those this year, as well as the change in the employee portion of the high deductible health plan, and all of these were budgeted. So the staff recommendation at this point is no increase to the high deductible, 10.9% increase to the PPO, and 20% to the EPO plans.
Any questions? Hearing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Item 4, motion approving resolution 2024-90.
A resolution authorizing task agreement number 47 with Wilson and Company to complete an engineering study for the approved Safe Streets for All grant in the not-to-exceed amount of $249,841.10.
Present. Second.
Motion is second. You're up.
This is a task agreement so we can do our contract for the Safe Streets for All. Basically, it's a grant that we received from the federal government. It's a rare one for us where we have a direct grant from the federal government directly to the city of Belton, and it doesn't go through any other department or any other state agency. So what we what?
How'd you get that done?
It's just a grant that they offered this way, and so we took full advantage of it.
I know,
So we received 80% funding. What this grant allows us to do is create a plan. It's basically Safe Streets for All. And so we can start looking at how do we improve our streets from the accidents that are currently occurring on the streets, and also look at potential accidents that are occurring. And those are what we call conflicts. So a lot of times you see conflicts where people hit their brake lights so you can see something's about to happen. It's a way we can also look and address things like how do we get kids safely to school and safely back, how we can address sidewalk issues throughout the area. The key to this grant is that once we do the study, then the projects that are listed on the study then become federally eligible for funding in future Safe Streets for All funding that the federal government puts out. Now, we will still have to have a 20% match for them, and that's where we had hoped to have that when we had the sidewalk vote last year, or this year, to find a way to make a match in order to build programs, whether they're sidewalk programs, intersection programs, anything to help our streets become safer. So this is a key. First, we got to do the study to identify what we're going to work on. I'd be happy to answer any questions you might have.
Alex?
Is this going to encompass the entire city?
Yes.
Okay. What about, actually, no, you answered that question. Okay, I'm good.
Anybody else?
I think I heard you say that sidewalks will be included in this
Yes,
study, correct?
It's anything to make streets safer, which includes sidewalks.
And that could be one of our top 5 things on the list, correct?
Right, so the study will help determine what comes out on top and what we go after funding for.
Okay.
You got a question?
No, he knows what I'm talking about. Just making an observation.
Anybody else? Hearing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Item 5, motion approving resolution 2024-91.
A resolution authorizing task agreement number 48 with Wilson and Company to provide professional design services for the extension of North Cass Parkway in the not-to-exceed amount of $548,685.
Present. Second.
We have a motion and a second. You're up.
So this is a task order so we can start designing North Cass from Peculiar Drive over to Mullen. We've done some preliminary engineering on it, and it had a northerly route. This is actually going to connect North Cass at Peculiar to 187th Street in Mullen and make that connection, and so you can eventually go all the way across 187th Street. The TDD approved this earlier this year. We've kind of waited on it because of the amount of work that's going on. Now that we're a place where we can get it designed and be able to work with them, we're going to design this project and then hopefully build it next year.
Any questions? Go ahead. Oh, you don't have one? All right. You got one? Oh. Hearing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Consent agenda, 1 motion non-available to approve the recommendations noted. Any member of the council may ask for an item to be taken from the consent agenda for discussion and separate action.
Present.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. H, communication from City Council. Councilmember Johnson.
My husband and I did the Red Ribbon Walk last weekend at High Blue Wellness, and that was a great event, and the trail was really great, and we really appreciated that, and we appreciate what Belton Cares does for the community.
So first things first, I got a question recently about how the artist was selected for our new mural. And while I know we put a call out for artists and then applications were received, could you give a little more detail just on how the art board made that determination?
Sure. So the Arts Commission collaborated and put together the call for artists with the specifications of where the mural was to be located and some of the kind of intention they had behind why they wanted the mural in that location and some of the history of the community as well. Published the call for artists, placed it both on our website as well as published it out through social media and our email list. We had 11 artists that actually applied to the project. The commission had another one of their public meetings, and during that meeting put together a rubric for how they would sort of score and rank all the different applications. One of them was, did the artist have the experience and the history of completing large murals? Was the art that they submitted as part of their portfolio in line with what the Arts Commission kind of envisioned as part of the call for artists? And then finally, was the sample of murals that they put together in their portfolio, was it something that they thought would be a good fit with the community? And so based on that rubric, they were able to select their top 3. We did kind of a quick short interview with the top 3, and then with the top artist that kind of came out of that process, we invited her to come to the actual mural spot at I-49, and the commission was able to interview her and kind of talk through what they had in mind. That process kind of went all through about June, all the way to our meeting in September, and then she, as the commission, then selected Danny Rome as the artist for that. They started kind of collaborating back and forth on what they wanted a mural to look like.
Thank you for that. I also have a parks update. So one of the things I know that I had talked about earlier this year was that there was a update coming to the Memorial Station sound system. That has been completed, so hopefully that will make a big difference. I know that's something that everybody is excited about. There is a new large, well, it's not too large, but there's a pretty noticeable new sign in front of High Blue at Wallace Park there, and it's got, just as of today, it has, it's running electronically, so it has the ads and whatnot for a park, so it's pretty nice looking. Stop by and check that out if you get a chance to. Just want to make everybody aware the comprehensive plan survey for the parks. So this is not the comprehensive plan as a whole, just the survey that went out to residents. Will be reviewed at the next park meeting. So if you're interested in that, come to the next meeting. A stream cleanup is taking place on November 2nd at Cleveland Lake. Registration starts at 8:30 a.m. And then we have the last car cruise of the year taking place this weekend, October 26th, and that'll be from 2 to 6. And then immediately after that is the Pumpkin Palooza from 6 to 8 p.m. over at Memorial Park. So that's everything I have.
Can I make a mural recommendation? Can we change it from an F-16 to an A-10 since they were what was stationed at Richards Gebauer? Any good Air Force guy should have caught that.
We also had C-130.
That's all I have.
I also participated last week in the walk. And then last Friday was the Witches' Walk, which on Main Street, which really had a good turnout of people. So it was a good time.
I have a couple things. I did go to an event at Memorial Station since the updated sound system has been in there, and my hearing aid didn't get turned off one time, so that's very good. It was nice. The band that played, I went to the senior prom, the band that played had a lackluster sound system, but when people were speaking, it was nice. So thanks, Parks, and that was nice. There is a blood drive tomorrow at the Main Street Theater, Red Cross Blood Drive, from 1 to 5. You can go to redcrossblood.org and enter the zip code, and you can schedule your appointment if you'd like to be involved with the blood drive at the Main Street Theater. Also, there is a baked good and raffle drawing for the Senior Citizen Center on November 22nd. It starts at 8 and 11, and the drawing starts at 11. You can purchase tickets in advance. The crafts and the stuff will be for sale is all made by the seniors at that group. So that is one of their fundraisers. The Hobby Lobby sign is up. I saw it this week. It looks really, really nice. And I've noticed that all the bracing and stuff that they put in took forever to get that stuff behind that sign put up. So it looks really nice. They've also updated the one when you turn in where it says Academy Sports. That one's been updated too. So thank you. That has been something that I've been looking at since I moved here, which was over 4 years ago. So I think that's it. The sound system's great, Alex. Thank you, guys. Thank you, Kevin.
I want to apologize to Ward 4 that we haven't organized a meeting yet. Things have just gotten in my way, and I have not cleared it to make sure that happens, but it will be happening soon.
All right, so November 23rd is going to be the Mayor's Christmas tree lighting and the parade of lights. With that, I know we've done in the past where the council donated canned goods and all that. We're going to try to do it a little different, maybe just a monetary donation this year instead of you guys doing that, because we're kind of changing the way we're doing the whole thing down there and trying to get away from the canned goods and stuff, so the Welfare Association just gets all the cash so they can purchase what they need. So if you have a monetary donation, give it to Andrea and she will take it and record it. Barrels will be at City Hall and around the city from November 1st for food and toys. So that's all I have. Do you have anything, sir?
Yes, sir. A couple of things. First, we are working on just letting the public know, we're working on doing a joint meeting with the parks at some point in the future to just have some clarification on charter and roles and stuff like that. And it's always good to just have a joint meeting from the council and the park board, I think, every once in a while anyway, just to have that communication, open that line of communication. It's a lot harder to be contentious if you are looking at people in the face and working with them directly. Not that it's contentious now. I just want to make sure that we keep that line of communication open. And so look forward to that. The discussion that we just took place about the art selection criteria, at some point we would like some feedback from the council on if that seems like a reasonable process for everybody. I know that the Arts Commission has put in a lot of work toward, creating a fair and open process, doing the rubric and the whole 9 yards. And so if there's any, if the council's okay with it, we can move forward with that process where the commission just essentially picks the artist, picks the recommendation, makes the recommendation to the council, and the council just essentially is the final stamp of approval. If that's what everybody wants, then we'll move forward with that. If you want a little bit more input, then we can have a conversation on that. We can workshop it in the future.
Is everybody okay with that process?
Yeah, I'm all for anything that gives our boards the means to do what our boards are intended for, so.
All right.
Fair enough. If you hear anything, if you have any other feedback on that, please just let me know and we can work through that. And then the last thing is, is November 4th and 6th are tentative dates for us to do workshop, or essentially work sessions for the public, trying to get public feedback, town hall style meetings concerning the budget. And so anybody that has any concerns about what's going on, any wish list items, as we're getting into our budget process, we'll do similar to what we did for a meeting recently, where we'll have a joint virtual and in-person town hall meeting. We'll do it in here because we have the technology to easily pull that off. And we're looking at the 4th and the 6th, probably at 5:30 p.m. on both days. If that's an issue, before we set it in stone, I'd like for people to give me some feedback on that. So if I don't hear anything within a week or so, we'll go ahead and move forward with those dates.
What were those dates again?
4th and 6th. It's a Monday and a Wednesday.
and it's not a council meeting week, but it is, the election is Tuesday the 5th.
Did you say 5:30?
Yeah. If you want to do 6, we can do 6. 5:30 seem reasonable.
I mean, does that matter to anybody? I was thinking 5:30 might be a little early, people getting off work. Let's do 6.
Okay, push it to 6.
I know that pushes it later, but that gives people coming from work to, if they want to show up.
For the public that watches this, I mean, the idea is that we're going to do a virtual and in person. You want to come in and have your say in person, that's great. It makes it a little more convenient for everybody who may not be able to make it in person. You do it from your phone, you can do it from a computer. And
Joe, are you going to do sign-ups for people that come here that want to speak, or is it just going to be an open?
it'll be pretty, I think what we'll do is if someone has some questions they want to submit before, and that's fine, but we're not going to require that by any means. It's a town hall, so it's designed to come, if you have questions, come bring your questions. We might have you do a sign-in sheet, just so we have record of everybody that's participated, but other than that, we're not going to require anything like that. Just come and ask your questions or give your feedback. That's it. That's all I've got.
All right, items for review and discussion. Number 1, Belton Police Department Victim Services Unit presentation. She said she wanted 20 minutes, but I'm only giving her 2.
Hi guys, I am Crystal Beal. I am the victim advocate with the Belton Police Department. I've not used this, so. Our unit staffing is, I am the only full-time advocate in that unit, and then we have some volunteers that come in and help work our court dates on Tuesdays. They help check our victims in, and if they need somebody to sit with them through that court process, then they can do that as well. Our funding is provided by the Stop VAWA grant program. It is monitored by the Department of Public Safety. So my position, the full-time advocate, is partially grant funded at 76%. And then it also funds a full-time detective who is specialized in domestic and sexual violence, and she is funded at 85%. So there are some limitations and extra duties that come with being grant funded. It is a grant requirement that I do a short presentation for City Council, and that is for funding reasons. We chose October because October is National Domestic Violence Awareness Month. So some other things are a priority of my time has to go to domestic and sexual violence victims. I also have to do monthly grant reporting. I also have to do monthly statistic reporting, and they can come in and do yearly site visits. The grant can come in and do that. There's also some training guidelines. Everyone that works in that unit has to have a specific amount of trainings per year. So what kind of victims does the Victim Service Unit work with? They primarily work with domestic and sexual violence victims, but also that would include child physical abuse, adult sexual abuse, child sexual abuse, elder abuse, survivors of homicide victims, violation of order protection victims, victims of family and suicides, victims of any major trauma, veterans, robbery, DWI, DWI crashes, and assaults. If you'll notice the purple starred ones, those are covered under the grant. So those are the ones that I have to give priority to. And then the other ones are the other 20% of my time can go to those types of victims. So what kind of services do we provide? We inform victims and advocate for their rights in all different platforms. We can provide crisis response and support, information and referrals to other agencies. Personal advocacy would be if someone is having a problem with their landlord because they've had too many domestic violence calls. We can help landlords understand the laws that go around that. Victim compensation information, crime prevention information, safety planning, follow-up contact throughout the entire process, not just a one phone call and it's done, criminal justice support, case status information, assistance with orders of protections. Myself and the victim advocate from Cass County do emergency orders of protections when the court is closed. We are the only two in the county that can provide that service. Keeping up with legislations, new laws that surround victims, and school and public awareness events. So these are some statistics over the past couple of years. Please note that these numbers only represent what the victim service unit does. It is not the number of police reports that come in or the calls for service that dispatcher police may handle. So in 2023, you can see that I personally had 1,578 contacts with victims. Of those, 462 were people that had never been contacted by the victim service unit before, leaving 1,116 being someone that may have been contacted 2, 3, 4, or more times. 35 crisis contacts, so those are contacts where there's an actual crisis happening right now that needs a crisis response. That accounted for 20.5 hours of my time. I made 100 contacts in adult abuse court, which goes on every Wednesday in Cass County. 3 municipal court contacts. A lot of that is because the volunteers are there, and so they're doing some of that work, leaving me available to do other work. 160 residents of Belton filed for an ex parte in Cass County. So the types of crime that I primarily work with, you can see the 69% is intimate partner violence. Those are the calls that I'm most taking. 18% is domestic violence, and the difference between domestic and intimate partner and domestic is maybe a family or household member. So we do differentiate a little bit there, although it's all encompassed under domestic violence. 7% were sexual assault calls, and 6% were just other types of calls that I may handle. These are our kind of statistics, what's happening to the cases that are coming in. So 13, in 2023, 13 went to the juvenile office, 65 were sent to the Cass County prosecutor, which is a huge number from 2022, and part of that is the implementation of the domestic and sexual violence detective, who's able to take some more of those cases and really investigate them and send them down. 42 were sent to the prosecutor, but maybe not charged. 181 cases were filed in the Belton Municipal Court, and then 58 were closed for other types of reasons. Maybe it didn't happen here in Belton, maybe the victim didn't make a disclosure or didn't want to go forward with those kind of charges. These are some of the notable things and projects that I've done over the last 3 years. In 2021 is when I started, so I created a daily log that helps us kind of keep track so that grant reporting is a little bit easier, submitting the grant every year, Stop the Violence training, attended a National Institute of Crime Prevention Advanced Domestic and Sexual Violence Conference, and then we also created a free coat section in the BPD lobby. So it has coats, hats, gloves, blankets. People can come in and take, they leave. It's actually been a really great program. Stuff rotates out of there all the time. It's really amazing. We also created a sheet donation program, so we have bed sheets in the office. So if our detectives have to take bed sheets as evidence of a crime, we can replace those. In 2022, I taught healthy relationships at the Pleasant Hill Middle School. We taught domestic violence at the Cass County Regional Training Academy. I attended the MOPS Family and Sexual Violence Conference, Crisis Intervention Training. I am CIT certified. We created our soft interview room, which has been used over 50 times. We started the school supply drive that benefits Heart and Hand and directly students of Belton. Creation of a lethality report, and then trained all officers on that lethality report. That lethality tells officers and victims how lethal their situation may be. And we reviewed and updated the department domestic violence policy. In 2023, I participated in National Night Out, taught, attended the conference, did the school supply drive, Teen Dating Violence Awareness Month, school presentations every February. We try to make it into all of the schools in Cass County to just let kids know that intimate partner violence is happening and that there is somebody that they can talk to. We did a presentation to the Children's Division to give them some resources. We participated in Project Connect, attended the MCADSV, which is the Missouri Coalition Against Domestic and Sexual Violence regional meeting. We did self-defense classes for the Girl Scouts. there was a bike rodeo for the police department. We did a CAS Career Center presentation about victim services. We established new child sexual assault material guidelines for the police department and how that kind of looks and works within our departments so that we're not distributing that among members. And of course, writing the grant for the next year. So these are just some pictures. The what does a healthy relationship mean to you picture, that is something that we took the high school, and the high school students actually wrote on that. They participate, they really enjoy that. The top picture with the backpacks is the back to school program, and then there's our coat closet and a picture of our soft interview room. My information's at the top. Does anybody have any questions?
Any questions? Thank you too, by the way, that's good information. Thank you for doing this. Go ahead.
These aren't really questions, but comments. I would call out that the soft interview room was the first of its kind in Missouri. And Kansas City just got on board and made their own this past year, so ahead of the game there. Also, the self-defense class that went on, was it this summer, spring? Was that part of this too? I learned a lot.
I didn't put 2024 in there, but yeah, we've done some self-defense classes for the public. They're free to the public when we can get them put on. And yeah, there's lots of good information.
Nice work. Thank you.
Yeah.
Since we're going to be talking about budget soon, do you need anything from the city council?
Not in my personal budget. We do accept some donations from the public, very limited amounts. Plain shirts of all sizes, plain sweatpants of all sizes. When you're a victim of a crime, sometimes your clothing becomes evidence and is taken from you. So we like to make sure that you're not leaving in a hospital gown or something that is not weather appropriate outside. We always take donations of fidgets. Victims need those for disclosing to people and in courts and things like that. And then of course candy, because that's what we work off of 24/7.
And I heard you say sheets.
Yes, we do bed sheets so that we can replace those if needed.
I just want to thank you for your service.
Yeah, absolutely.
Go ahead.
I noticed that the list continued to just get longer and longer every year, so I'm excited to see what 2024's is. I mean, it must be like super long.
Yeah, it's only me, so I can only do what I can. But yeah, it's really exciting to partner with the community and just really get out there and let people know that the program itself exists.
Well, no, I thank you, and I was trying to highlight the fact that you've been doing a lot of great work, and appreciate you bringing that forward and sharing all that with us. I did have one quick question about the volunteers. Mm-hmm. Are those other like staff members of BPD, or how does one become a volunteer for that type of role?
So anybody can volunteer. There are some requirements about like confidentiality and things like that. The current volunteers that I have are members of the American Legion Wives. So they're just who has been volunteering lately. But yeah, our volunteer program is open.
Okay, awesome. Thank you.
Yeah.
Any other questions? Thank you very much. Item 2, 2024 City of Belton Community Survey.
Thank you, Mayor and Council. Wanted to give the Council just one last look at the 2024 Community Survey. I know we have, in the community, we've had ETC did a survey for our comprehensive plan focused on planning and some of our development services side. We also just wrapped the park-specific survey for the Parks Master Plan. If you take a look through some of the questions in this survey, you see it's really more at kind of a global level perception of the community, perception of services. Back when we originally had kind of put this in front of council, asked for feedback, and received really 3, I think, good pieces of feedback that I wanted to share with council that we've updated in this draft. The 2 easiest ones, one of them, there was a request for within the public safety section that we specifically call out police, fire, and ambulance as different questions. Some of the feedback that I received from ETC was with fire and EMS being so closely related, we would definitely call them out as separate questions, but they would remain under kind of the same category. And so we'll have them within the same category, but EMS does get specifically called out in a question. The other one was a request for including a question on the overall satisfaction of city leadership. ETC kind of provided some good feedback that typically when they see this and they benchmark against other cities, or when they benchmark the data against other cities, they really like to add 2 questions. One of them is, those are the ones that are highlighted in yellow, is question 13 under the perceptions, kind of the overall quality of the city's elected leadership, and then the overall quality of the city's appointed leadership. Kind of divides out those folks that, yourselves here on the council, but then also the different appointed boards and commissions, the kind of the perception of those. This also gives us an opportunity to, again, like I said, benchmark against other cities, both here in the metro, but also nationwide, that ask a very similar question as to how they're being perceived. The last request was a little bit of a bigger request, and ETC and I kind of went back and forth on a couple different ideas, and this was, how can we ask our community about their perceptions of the levels of transparency in city government? Kind of the fear was, or not the fear, but the concern was, if we were just to ask one question of what is your perception on the level of transparency, the folks at ETC were a little concerned that we might not get the kind of data and feedback that we're really looking for. Because a lot of times when you ask something that really is kind of a yes or no question, do you feel the city's being transparent? A lot of times people will just default to no, we don't, or they might kind of bring that kind of that sort of feedback to the survey. And so what ETC had recommended and what we have highlighted in this survey is we really wanted to focus more on the tactics. How are we communicating? How are we communicating from a city to our residents through our website, through our regular email program, through social media, through town halls? But then also we ask them in the second part of that question under city communication, what is their preferred method of communication? Something that I think is really important, especially when we look at this data, is, we want to make sure that if we're putting all of our money marbles and chalk into social media, maybe that's not our community's preferred way of communication. Maybe there's another way that we need to really kind of position or kind of pivot ourselves into when it comes to communicating. And it was that feedback that ETC gave us that said, as we start to get really focused in on the tactics, what people prefer, how they prefer communication with their city government, that really has a bigger influence on overall transparency and feelings and perceptions of transparency, that folks are being communicated with, that they have a venue and an ability to communicate with government or our city council, as well as the kind of the city employees as well. And so we kind of looked at it at a more tactical level on some of those questions under city communication, as well as under kind of the customer service category in the survey. Those are really the 3 big requests that we had received on the ETC survey. Like I said, wanted to give council just one last look at the survey. We held off for the last 2 months while Parks was wrapping its survey. We didn't want the 2 to overlap. And then also Mr. Rokas has a couple street projects I'd like to wrap up before we start asking folks. So any other feedback or questions, I'm happy to take those, and we'll start rolling.
Any more
on this.
questions?
Just real quick, under the communications section 5, option number 6, the review,
That's our email program, but we can make that more specific. Instead of our
the review, because email's option 3, and then I forgot what our newsletter's called. It's
Yeah.
called the review, my mistake. Yeah, that might need clarified.
Yeah.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you.
Alex?
I'll just say, I appreciate you working on the requests. I know I had asked about the transparency piece, and I know that's a little bit of a difficult task. I get that. So I appreciate you following through on those requests and coming up with a plan for that.
Go ahead.
Be mailed out? Will this be, will it be online, that people can take the survey online too?
Yes, we'll have both options available. So for it to be a statistically valid survey, ETC will mail to the kind of the required number that they need to reach within the community. Randomly selected folks they will also make sure that, because we've had 2 surveys go in the past on kind of topic specific areas, make sure that those folks don't overlap too much. But then we will also have an online version for anyone who wants to get in and provide, can take this exact same survey, but then also allows them to provide like narrative answers. So if there are certain questions where they want to type in just more feedback for the community, and ultimately it's really just kind of the more feedback we can get, the better.
Roughly how many are they going to mail?
I believe in the contract, we said they were going to be mailing about 1,400.
And so if individuals are aware that they can do online and they get a mailing, and so they go do it online and don't do the mailing, doesn't that influence the validity of the survey?
So in order for the surveys to, and I would have to double check with ETC, but when you receive a paper version of the mailer, you receive a code within that mailer. And so if you would prefer to, instead of filling out the paper version, go online, you can place that code into the, when you log in, or not log in, but when you go to the website, place in that code, it then registers on ETC's data collection side that this was one of the mailed surveys, and not to double count that. If someone does then fill out their paper one and mail it back at the same time.
You good?
I can go on, but I won't.
I think some of the if I'm not mistaken, Mike, the online surveys aren't necessarily part of the statistically valid data unless they're entered with the code. Does that make any sense? And so we're getting feedback from everybody with the online version of the survey, but they're needing a certain number of them back of the 1,400 to make it statistically valid, and that's where you get the accuracy.
Well, but when they choose to do online and they are allowed to do more answering than on the actual survey itself, that influences the statistical.
Well, you're going to still have two different
No, there's going to be two
buckets of
separate
data,
things.
essentially.
The mailed ones are the statistically valid ones. And then
Right, but he said that the surveys online, or they're going to be allowed to type in answers
Yeah,
and
but that's
stuff.
not going to be part of the statistically valid report.
So there are going to be two online surveys.
Correct.
Well, so this is where my question was going to, actually. So just doubling out off of that. I remember the comprehensive plan, we had the same exact plan, which is there was mailed out as well as available to do online. And I remember we got feedback, but what I don't remember is, was it explained to us what the feedback was? So I remember that we got the statistically valid stuff and all that, but did we also compare that, or add, like, do we have the statistically valid and then do we also have the online put in there as well, so we can kind of see if they matched or if they were different? Or I guess maybe a question for Matt here, but
yeah, we did receive two different reports, and what was submitted online wasn't significantly different than the statistically valid survey, but the statistically valid survey was the one that we relied on for kind of our final results.
And that makes sense. And so because I would like to see on this one as well the difference between those two, or adding them all together, what it kind of aggregates to. And I just think, I understand we should 100% trust the statistically valid one. But I just, since we're collecting the other data, we might as well see that as well. That was.
Dewey was supposed to beat Truman too, based on survey. So you have to have some understanding and have some faith, but at the same time, you need to remain skeptical.
Well, okay.
I think our statistics have evolved a little bit since that happened.
I don't know. I can show you a couple last year or 4 years ago that didn't turn out right.
Anybody
Sorry,
else?
I misspoke when I said 100% trust. You're absolutely right. We should always have a healthy dose of skepticism. I don't disagree.
Anybody else? Thank you.
Thank you.
Creekstone at Autumn Ridge.
Yep, staff is currently reviewing applications that were submitted for a rezoning and a preliminary development plan for Creekstone at Autumn Ridge. That includes all of the undeveloped parcels on the west side of Mullen Road in front of the single-family and two-family areas in Autumn Ridge. The properties are currently zoned general commercial and are proposed to be rezoned to R3A PUD, which is a multifamily apartment complex with a planned unit development, which would allow for the development of a mix of 2- and 3-story apartment buildings with amenities. The purpose of the PUD in this situation is not to make any significant code modifications to the R3 zoning, but it would lock in certainty into the development plan, which would limit the building heights to 2 stories adjacent to single-family homes instead of 3 or 4 stories, which would be allowed under the code. A neighborhood meeting for that project will be held next Wednesday, October 30th at 5:30 here in the council chambers. The public hearing is scheduled for the Planning Commission on Tuesday, November 19th. And if those requests move forward from Planning Commission, they are tentatively scheduled for the Tuesday, December 17th council meeting.
Any questions? Thank you. Item 4, 2050 comprehensive plan update.
Yep, we do have the public hearing scheduled for the Planning Commission on Tuesday, November 19th for the review and the consideration of the final draft of the 2050 comprehensive plan. The initial draft was published in June after approximately 12 months of community and stakeholder engagement and analysis. There was a public hearing that was initially noticed for the August 6th Planning Commission. However, after there were concerns were expressed about the Marquee Business Park sub-area plan, we did hold 2 additional meetings, including a community-wide town hall to receive community feedback, and we did make some revisions to the sub-area plan based on that. If adopted by the Planning Commission, the plan will be brought forward to the City Council for adoption by resolution. And after the plan is adopted, staff will finalize the RFP for the Unified Development Code update and release that for proposals to hopefully start that process in early 2025.
Any questions? Hearing none. Number 5, Emergency Services Board Software Cost Sharing Agreement.
Thank you.
Mr. Mayor and Council, this Emergency Services Board Software Cost Sharing Agreement is the actual official agreement. We talked about this a couple of months back, about this coming down the pike, and we approved a certain limited scope to this project, just to allow us to be included. We had to approve the agreement to be included in the rollout of the software for the CAD system, and this is the overall cost sharing agreement details. As you can see, some communities have already approved it and already signed it, and so I'm just bringing it forward to you guys. If you have any concerns, if you want to discuss this more, that's what this is for. This is a workshop item today. I intend to bring it for consideration as an ordinance at the next council meeting, and it would have to be an ordinance because it's an agreement with multiple governmental agencies. So if you have any concerns, I'd love to hear them. I know you're just now kind of seeing this for the first time as far as the actual agreement. And we will, in the car, of course, explain that what we're paying for these services currently under our own agreement, and each entity has their own agreement. But this kind of centralizes the CAD and the software portion of this stuff, and we stand to see some significant financial savings by being part of this agreement.
Go ahead.
Can you explain how they broke out each party's share?
They did it based on users and licensures, essentially. And so however many licenses we were asking to have, because it's all a centralized system, it's all the same software, even though some of the specifics for different like some of the Belton PD information will be essentially cordoned off in its own separate Belton PD portion, so you're not, the other departments that are included in this agreement won't have access to like active investigation information and stuff like that for stuff, but anything that might be relevant as far as dispatch is concerned will be readily available for sharing, so that way it can hopefully lead to quicker response times throughout the county, and everybody knows what everybody else is doing.
Do you know how many licenses Belton will have?
I don't know the exact number offhand. I can get it for you and put it in the car if you'd like, so have that information when I couldn't tell you offhand the exact number of licenses. I know we've got PD and we've got fire all included as this.
Okay, just a general question. Is South Metro included in this under Raymore? Or?
Well, Raymore is doing it, and I believe there's a separate agreement with the other fire districts. South Metro does their dispatching through, is it? Raymore, yeah.
Raymore.
So this is essentially an agreement with all those that do dispatch services.
Okay.
So based on that question, I guess we asked for the most licenses?
Well, we,
It's just-
sheriff's office.
Well, okay, fair enough. Sheriff's office asked for more, but I'm just saying, from the city, the municipalities, it looks like we.
Yes, we have the most users.
Based on users, not necessarily license, but
Yeah.
how many users of the system we will have.
Correct. So yeah, we have the most users
Have the most.
of all those involved, other than the sheriff's office.
So either we're, so I guess where I'm going with this is, we must have a pretty good, it must be more interesting or, desirable to work at Belton Dispatch then, just because we must have a better, slightly better, with more users, I assume. You see what I'm
Not the
saying here?
dispatch users, it's the users of the system, which includes first responders, like, so police officers, fire department, that kind of thing. So it's not just the
Okay.
dispatchers.
Okay. And then the ESB, so the actual board itself,
Mm-hmm.
is, aren't we part of that board? So I'm trying to understand where that, so they're gonna pay part of that share. I'm trying to understand where that board gets the money from.
ESB is its own entity. It's its own board, which is, they have an election for those positions, and they also have a sales tax of their own, a countywide sales tax of their own that goes toward their own funding.
That's what I need to know. Okay.
Anybody else? If you have any more questions, if you have any more questions, just get with the city manager.
Yeah, and get with me, and also, I mean, we can always have a more open discussion during the new business portion of this,
Yeah, just
in a couple weeks.
next week or two.
Yeah.
All right, anything else? All right, item L, motion to enter an executive session, discuss matters pertaining to legal actions according to Missouri State Statute 610.021.1, pertaining to leasing, purchase, and sale of real estate according to Missouri State Statute 610.021.2, pertaining to negotiated contracts according to Missouri State Statute 610.021.12, and let the record be closed and the meeting adjourned from.
Present.
Before we have this motion, it was determined we didn't need executive session tonight.
Unless you need
I don't
one.
know, why did you make me read that?
We like to hear you read it.
We were all looking at each other, wondering when to jump in, and
That
we
was
decided it was
me.
after you got done with the
So,
reading. It's
there
good
is no
practice.
request for a motion. Any other business become before the body? I'd entertain a motion to adjourn.
Motion to adjourn.
Present?
Have a
Second?
motion and a second. Any discussion? Hearing none? All in favor?